The poor should be fine just with water, she said, bursting into laughter. Kevin's mother said that, laughing uproariously. I frowned at her lack of class. Uh-oh. Could it be? Right after that, Kevin's sister looked at me, her face turning pale. I let out a small chuckle. My name is Charlotte, and I'm 54 years old this year. I divorced my ex-husband when our daughter, Jade, was 3 years old. The reason for the divorce was irreconcilable differences. Moreover, my ex-husband was unemployed and spent his time drinking. No matter how many times I talked to him, he never changed. Naturally, our household finances were always in dire straits. I decided I didn't need a family like that and chose to divorce him. We divorced without any child support or alimony from my ex-husband. Since then, it's been just Jade and me. I was a housewife until I divorced my husband. When I had to raise Jade by myself, I started working frantically. Unable to leave young Jade alone at home, I initially made ends meet by doing piecework at home right after the divorce. Of course, life was always on the edge. Despite working from dawn till dusk, my salary was low. That's why we lived a life of constant saving. There were times when, with just one day left until payday, I ran out of money and went without eating anything myself. Despite these hardships, I was able to raise Jade until she became an adult. Now that Jade has started working, I have more free time and have started dedicating more time to my job. Using my experience in piecework, I began creating handmade products. This has now become successful and turned into a business. There have also been changes in my private life. That change was Jade's engagement. Not long after starting her job, Jade began dating a man named Kevin. Kevin was Jade's supervisor at work and is 5 years her senior. I've seen a photo of Kevin that Jade showed me. He seemed like a fine young man. It seems Jade took a lesson from her father, as Kevin appears to be a serious person. I'm happy about the happiness Jade has found. My life is also at a turning point. I decided it's time to live life the way I want. That's what I was thinking. Then one day, Mom, I have something to tell you. Jade approached me after dinner. It was rare for Jade to speak to me hesitantly like this. Thinking this, I replied to Jade. What's the matter all of a sudden? You seem different. Then, timidly, Jade said to me. Actually, Kevin and I are getting married. Really? That's wonderful. Congratulations. Since I've never actually met Kevin, I don't know what he's like. I hoped he would be just like he appeared in the photos. I'm glad you said that, Mom. I was worried you might be against it. Jade seemed relieved that I wasn't opposed. She clearly looked relieved. And then Jade made a suggestion to me. So, I was hoping you could meet Kevin this coming weekend. It seems Jade wanted me to meet Kevin before they got married. Being the serious person Jade is, she probably wanted to show me her fiancé Kevin to put my mind at ease. I nodded firmly at Jade. Understood, I'll meet Kevin. I want to know what kind of person he is. Mom. Jade said, looking happy. And so, it was arranged for Kevin and me to meet. On Sunday of the weekend, I was waiting at home for Jade and him. It was just before 11 o'clock. It wouldn't be long before Jade brought Kevin over. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Yes. When I opened the door, Jade and Kevin were standing there. Nice to meet you. I'm Kevin, Jade's fiancé. Kevin greeted me. I was a bit relieved at Kevin's politeness. Jade is my precious daughter. I'm glad her partner turned out to be a decent person. Likewise, please come in, I said, inviting them into the house. Kevin felt like a fine young man even after entering the house. He brought famous brand sweets that you'd find in department stores as a gift. And he happily shared the story of how he and Jade met. Kevin, stop it, you're embarrassing me. Jade said, blushing and speaking to Kevin. Jade's demeanor felt fresh to me. However, the pleasant atmosphere changed in an instant. By the way, is your father at work today? Kevin asked, looking around. His face seemed puzzled. I was taken aback by Kevin's question. Glancing at Jade, I noticed her complexion was a bit off. She must have kept it a secret from Kevin that we were a single-parent family. Honestly, it was wrong of Jade to keep it a secret. In old-fashioned households, single-parent families often face prejudice. I braced myself to explain the situation to Kevin. Jade might not have mentioned it, but, actually, I'm divorced from my husband, and it's just been the two of us, I said. Then, Kevin's face, which had been smiling until then, went expressionless for a moment. What's wrong? I asked Kevin, feeling anxious. Maybe it was a mistake for me to be the one to tell him, I thought. But in the next moment, Kevin was already smiling again. It's nothing. Please don't worry about it, he said, smiling. Is that so? I said, tilting my head. Confused by the change in Kevin's expression, I couldn't ask anything more. After that, the marriage proceeded smoothly. Jade seems to be enjoying the wedding preparations, saying things like, "What kind of dress should I choose? Mom, what dress do you think would be good?" "Well, I think your favorite would be nice," I replied, but I was somewhat distracted. I couldn't forget Kevin's expression from that day. The moment his face went blank. It's possible his family has strict views on single-parent households. So, I asked Jade, what did Kevin say on the way home that day? About us being a single-parent family? It's possible Kevin is facing opposition to the marriage from his family. When I asked, Jade replied, puzzled. He didn't say anything special. Mom, are you worrying too much? Since Jade said that, I couldn't ask anymore. However, my bad feeling turned out to be true. It happened one night. Mom. As soon as Jade came home, she called my name. Her expression was quite dark, and I was surprised and asked her, Jade, why such a gloomy face? Did something happen? Even when I asked, Jade remained silent. It was unusual for the optimistic Jade to look so troubled. After a while, she started to speak, though it seemed difficult for her to say. Actually, it seems Kevin's family are not happy with our marriage. Jade said this with a sad face. Why? Because we're a single-parent family. They said Kevin might struggle because we are poor and a single-parent family. That's an awful thing to say. It would be quite painful to hear such things from the in-laws. I asked Jade seriously. Did Kevin's mother say that? Jade nodded silently. I was outraged by the event. I don't want us to be judged as poor just because we're a single-parent family. We've had our struggles, but now we live a decent life. In fact, I've worked as hard as any man. Then Jade said something unbelievable. Kevin's sister also said a lot of things. Like what? I asked Jade. She said we're both just after Kevin's money. That there's no way they could become family with people like us. Jade replied, looking disheartened. Her face looked very lonely. Surely, hearing those words directly must have hurt Jade a lot. It's appalling that they would say such terrible things about me even though they haven't met me. I can't believe Kevin's family. What did Kevin say at that time? I asked Jade. And I remembered Kevin's face when he came to our house the other day. Maybe his expressionless face was because he imagined his family's reaction. It seems his family has quite a prejudice against single-parent households. I became worried about what lies ahead. Then Jade said, Kevin defended me. After all, I work at the same company as Kevin, so it's absurd to think I'd ask him for money. I was relieved to hear that. If Kevin is on Jade's side, that's reassuring. I found myself murmuring those words. If Kevin had not defended Jade and sided with his family instead, I would have been worried about Jade's future. She would likely continue to face snide remarks from her in-laws and feel marginalized. However, if Kevin stands by Jade, things might be a bit better. A few days later, Jade proposed a meeting with Kevin's family. Mom, I want to have a face-to-face meeting with Kevin's family before the wedding. I'm really sorry to ask, but it seems the proposal came from Kevin's mother. Your mother should greet her future in-laws at least once. She has that much common sense, right? She was told. We couldn't refuse. I'm really sorry. Jade apologized, considering my feelings. I'll meet with Kevin's family for Jade's marriage greetings. Honestly, I'm not sure what to expect. I don't really want to go, but it seems proper to do so. It's okay. I gave my consent. On the day of the marriage greeting, I went to a restaurant near Kevin's family home with Jade. The reason for choosing a restaurant was explained by Jade, as told by Kevin's mother. We can't invite you home without being officially married. There's a fancy restaurant nearby, that should suffice, right? The restaurant chosen by Kevin's mother was an upscale one, costing $300 per person for a course meal. I occasionally go there for business, but almost never in my personal life. I was puzzled by Kevin's mother's choice of restaurant. When Jade first greeted Kevin's family, his mother had chosen a nearby cafe. Moreover, Jade ended up paying for Kevin's mother's tea. According to her, it's natural since you're joining our family. Though Kevin reimbursed the tea cost later. Why is Kevin's mother so condescending, even though we're the ones being invited for the marriage greeting? I couldn't help but frown. However, if I, as Jade's mother, refuse, it's Jade who will be blamed for being rude. After the marriage, Jade might feel even more out of place. That's a problem, so I reluctantly accepted the proposal. I applied light makeup and headed to the restaurant. I usually wear full makeup for work, but I thought it best to keep it understated today. I also chose much plainer clothes than usual. Wearing flashy clothes might lead people to think you're a big spender, especially among in-laws. Given the rumors that I'm after Kevin's money, it would be wise to dress modestly. With that in mind, Jade and I entered a fancy restaurant and were escorted by the staff to a private room. We found Kevin and his family waiting inside. Jade's mother, thank you so much for coming today. Kevin greeted us politely. Thank you for the invite. I replied to Kevin, expressing my gratitude. Then I faced Kevin's parents and sister. They were smirking at Jade and me with a condescending look. It was clear at a glance that we were not welcomed by Kevin's family. I greeted them with caution, strengthening my guard. Thank you for sparing your precious time today. My name is Charlotte, Jade's mother. I look forward to getting to know you. Then, Kevin's mother smirked and said, I don't particularly feel like looking forward to it, you know. Mom. Kevin admonished his mother, but she was unfazed. After all, being from a single-parent family is problematic, isn't it? You must be struggling with money. Even your clothes are so plain. She looked me up and down. Then, she snorted disdainfully through her nose. It seems my decision to wear deliberately plain clothes backfired. Kevin's sister also made snide remarks while laughing. You could have married someone more decent. Kevin really drew the short straw, didn't he? Taking in a poor mother and daughter. I was irritated by her comment. Such remarks are incredibly rude, especially for a first meeting. However, I couldn't disrupt Jade's marriage. Excuse me. I reluctantly took my seat. Perhaps because I didn't retort, the in-laws seemed amused as they watched me. Jade looked at me with concern. Kevin seemed a bit angry at his family's lack of manners. His brow was furrowed. Oblivious to this, his mother was in high spirits. We've reserved a course meal for today. It's $300 per person. She excitedly told her daughter. Really? I'm looking forward to it because the course meals here are quite expensive. We must eat a lot. Her voice was lively with excitement. Kevin's father was nodding happily as well. After a while, the staff brought in the dishes. A colorful array of amuse-bouches. This restaurant serves 3 types of amuse-bouches on a single plate. They all looked delicious. However, only water was in front of me. I was about to call the staff back, but they had already left. Only water was left in front of me, a stark reminder. Kevin was dumbfounded by the scene. His sister, possibly aware, was snickering. Jade noticed too and said anxiously, Mom. Then, his mother smirked. The poor can make do with water, right? She said, bursting into laughter. I frowned at her lack of class. What does this mean? I asked her. The in-laws had chosen this restaurant and invited us. Yet, they had no intention of hosting us properly. I was inwardly very irritated. She glanced at me and then laughed happily. She didn't seem to care that I was upset. In fact, she seemed to be enjoying it. Oh. Not only are you from a poor, single-parent family, but you're also slow? We have no reason to welcome someone as worthless as you. She hurled insults while looking at my outfit from head to toe, and then snorted disdainfully through her nose. Her husband nodded as if to say it was only to be expected. Isn't it shameful to be a single parent? A woman abandoned by her husband is nothing but flawed. Well, a plain woman like you wouldn't be in demand anyway. He said this and burst into laughter. Despite the fact that it wasn't a case of my husband leaving me, his assumption was unilateral. I thought it was truly unacceptable as a human being. The sister was laughing merrily as well, saying, I wouldn't want to end up like her. Working for low wages even though you're a woman. It's really pathetic to have given up on femininity. She looked down on me as she spoke. Mom. I'm sorry. Jade's face looked like she was about to cry. She must feel responsible for putting me in this difficult situation because of her. Jade was downcast. I had reached my limit of patience. I couldn't stay quiet after being looked down upon like this. It might be time to fight back. At that moment. Enough already. Ganging up and badmouthing Jade's mother. Aren't you ashamed as adults? Kevin shouted loudly. I was surprised that Kevin stood up for me. Kevin. Jade looked shocked as well. Kevin was red-faced and angry at his family. However, his family showed no remorse. His mother was still laughing joyfully, saying, there's no need to defend poor people. Why are you so angry? The father was nodding in agreement. Kevin's words seemed to have no effect on them at all. I was truly appalled by his parents. They must lack common sense. It might be time for a counterattack. I have an ace up my sleeve that will surprise the in-laws. At that moment, the sister started staring intently at my face. I inadvertently glared back at her. Then, she muttered to herself. Wait, could it be? Immediately after, her face turned pale as she looked at me. It seems she has finally realized who I really am. I let out a chuckle. She was trembling as she looked at me. This can't be happening. Noticing her condition, the father asked her in confusion. What's wrong with you? You've been acting strange. The mother was also surprised, looking at her. Oh, no, you're as pale as a ghost. Are you feeling unwell? She spoke words of concern to her daughter. Yet, her trembling didn't stop. Considering the fact she had realized, it was understandable. Then, she quietly asked her father a question. Dad. The company you work for is Thompson Handicrafts, right? She looked intently at her father, seeking confirmation of the truth. Thompson Handicrafts is a small to medium-sized company with about 100 employees. The salary is less impressive compared to major companies. And I'm familiar with Thompson Handicrafts, the company Kevin's father works for. Because it's related to my work. Laughing, he said. What's with the sudden question? I may not look it, but I'm working hard as the head of the sales department. And he continued. I even got you a job at our company through my connections. Be grateful. He laughed heartily after saying that. Of course, that makes sense. She looked defeated and disheartened. Her father asked her, puzzled. But why are you asking that? Are you trying to brag about working full-time because this poor woman is probably a temp worker? He looked down on me with disdain. I vowed to myself that this man would pay for his words. Then, she sighed lightly and started to speak. Dad, don't you know who our company's clients are? Our company's clients? He asked, puzzled. Kevin's mother had a blank expression on her face. It seemed she, being a full-time homemaker, couldn't quite grasp the situation. She began to explain, albeit with some difficulty. I've met Jade's mom before, inside the company. She was wearing heavier makeup at the time, so I didn't recognize her immediately. He seemed confused. What do you mean, inside the company? I remember the faces of all employees, including part-timers, but I don't recall such an old lady. I frowned at the insult of being called such an old lady. However, he seemed preoccupied with other concerns. Hearing the mention of inside the company, he appeared to be desperately trying to recall something. However, it's no surprise he doesn't remember me since we never spoke directly. As I thought this, she started to apologize. Jade's mom, I'm truly sorry for everything. Seeing her behavior, the parents began to get agitated. Why apologize? There's no need to say sorry to such a poor person, said the mother. Exactly. Don't you have any pride? Apologizing to a poor person like this? He yelled at her. She glared fiercely at her parents. Dad, Mom. Jade's mom is actually very wealthy, way more than Dad. What did you say? He glared at her. He probably never expected his own daughter to say something like that. Her mother also shrieked hysterically at her words. How could you say such a thing? She said in a resigned tone. Because Jade's mom is a president. I've served her tea in the company's reception room. You know green bags, right? At that name, he froze. Then, he slowly turned his head towards me with a creaking sound. I intentionally chuckled. His face turned pale. Green bags? Isn't that the brand President Thompson finally managed to collaborate with? Then Kevin's mother screamed. Green bags? That's the brand with stores in department stores, right? Even my bag is from there. She kept glancing at her bag multiple times. When we entered the private room of this restaurant, a familiar bag caught my eye. She was holding that bag carefully under her chair. Though it's against etiquette in a high-end restaurant, it must be her favorite bag. I chuckled softly and informed her. That's a magazine freebie, isn't it? I'm honored that you're using my brand for it. Her face turned bright red. She then looked down, seemingly embarrassed. She must be feeling ashamed that her bag was revealed to be a magazine freebie. I quickly pulled out my business card from my card holder. I am Charlotte Green, the representative of Green Bags. The parents stared at the business card intently. I can't believe she was actually the president. He was trembling as he looked at the business card. His wife also looked incredulous. I spoke to the two of them, who were silently gazing at the business card. It seems a collaboration with Thompson Handicrafts is no longer possible. What a shame. At that, his face showed a startled expression. Why? That was the project President Thompson was most committed to. If that collaboration is cancelled, our company will. He trembled with fear as he spoke. What's going on? She, confused, asked him. The truth is, Thompson Handicrafts has been struggling financially. The number of people engaging in handicrafts has been declining compared to the past. When I was young, my mother would sew everything by hand. But now, cheap mass-produced items are widely available, likely a sign of the times. Thompson Handicrafts, greatly affected by this trend, has seen its sales decrease year by year. When President Thompson proposed the collaboration, he mentioned it as a last resort to revive the company. However, I have collaborated with numerous well-known brands. Honestly, I wasn't very interested in collaborating with a small to medium-sized company like Thompson Handicrafts. Initially, I declined President Thompson's proposal, but eventually, his passion won me over, and I agreed. We decided to produce bags in collaboration with Thompson Handicrafts. But that's all in the past now. He was trembling. He must be terrified of what might happen next. Ignoring the trembling him, I quietly said. There isn't much benefit in collaborating with Thompson Handicrafts. I was just swayed by President Thompson's passion. However, his employee that looks down on Jade. I stared coldly at him. He was sweating under my gaze. Then, suddenly, he deeply apologized to me. While she was puzzled by his deep apology, he desperately sought my forgiveness. Jade and Kevin were also surprised by his deep apology. I'm truly sorry. He apologized deeply multiple times. He seemed unconcerned about his dignity. From my perspective, his profuse apologies had no effect on me. Apologizing so deeply only after understanding my position seemed like an act to protect himself. I don't believe there was any genuine remorse in his apology. I spoke with an icily cold voice. An apology now, after all the disdain you've shown towards Jade and me? To think an apology would suffice after all this. His mindset is truly naive. Realizing his apologies wouldn't change the situation, he quickly stood up. It was all just for show. She, puzzled, said to me. We're going to be family, so you can forgive us, right? She smiled flippantly as she said this. Then, without pausing, she continued. I'm a big fan of green bags. Since we're family, I can get some products for free, right? She looked at me expectantly. I was so appalled I couldn't respond. Mom, that's too convenient. Kevin commented with a grimace. That statement was beyond unreasonable. Yet, she, not understanding, became sullen. Why not? There must be plenty of stock, right? It wouldn't hurt to give away a few. Both her husband and daughter looked on in disbelief. I told her flatly. Our products are not to be given away for free. After all, you are still strangers to us. She looked frustrated at my words. But Jade and our Kevin are getting married, right? That makes us family. You should be providing financial support as family. You're a president. After all. She said this nonchalantly. After repeatedly calling us poor, she still has this attitude. It seems she has not reflected at all. Finally, Kevin lost his temper at her attitude. Mom, you change your attitude just because you found out she's a president. Aren't you ashamed? Kevin, his face flushed with anger, rebuked his mother. However, she just laughed it off, unbothered. It's fine. Presidents have money to spare, right? Share a little with us. I quietly told her. Even if Jade and Kevin get married, I have no intention of associating with you. She approached me with a surprised look. Don't say that. Once Kevin gets married, we'll be family anyway. Giving away a bag or two wouldn't hurt. I was truly irritated by her. As I was contemplating how to respond, Kevin stepped between me and her. Kevin. I asked, and he made a troubled face. I knew you were the president. I kept silent because I was sure my parents would trouble you if they found out. His father looked regretful at Kevin's confession. You knew? If you had told me, I would have. You would have acted like Mom, right? Kevin looked at his father with a cold gaze. What kind of attitude is that towards your parents? Keep this up, and you'll be disowned. He shouted at Kevin. Jade was flustered by the exchange. Kevin sighed and declared. I'd rather be disowned. I'm cutting ties with you too. Why would you say that? After we've done so much to raise you. She spoke to Kevin, clearly upset. Both his father and sister were stunned, staring at Kevin. They likely never imagined he would speak of severing ties. I want to cherish Jade from now on. I don't need a family that disregards Jade and her mother. Kevin. His mother broke down crying on the spot. His father and sister were dumbfounded. Being disowned by their own son, whom they had doted on, must have been incredibly hard for them. But it was a result of their own actions, starting with his mother. Please live with regret for the rest of your life. I imagine you'll face many hardships in the future. I chuckled and added my comment. Jade then joined in. We won't even inform you if we have children. She stated firmly to her in-laws. Not being able to meet my grandchildren. Please, spare us that. Her cry of agony filled the room. Amidst this, Kevin quietly added. We're done being a family. At his words, his father and sister seemed to want to plead with us, their faces tearful. Ignoring them, Jade, Kevin, and I left the restaurant. Later, I heard that Kevin's father and sister were fired from their company. The day after the incident at the restaurant, I told President Thompson that I wanted to cancel our collaboration. Despite his many attempts to persuade me, I refused. I cannot collaborate with a company that is capable of disregarding people like that. Although I sympathized with President Thompson's desire to save his company, I couldn't cooperate with a company that employed people like Kevin's family. I explained the situation to President Thompson. He was furious. It turns out President Thompson has a daughter about Jade's age and couldn't forgive Kevin's family's actions. The collaboration with me was crucial for Thompson Handicrafts. Their actions had ruined it. It's understandable that President Thompson couldn't forgive them. Kevin's father was old enough, and his sister had only been a part-time worker through her father's connections. Their prospects for re-employment after being fired from Thompson Handicrafts were grim. Additionally, Kevin's mother is a full-time homemaker. She has been cut off by Kevin, who was the sole breadwinner. Once, the in-laws came directly to our company to negotiate. Please collaborate with Thompson Handicrafts. If you do, President Thompson will surely rehire me. Even if collaboration is not possible, provide financial support. Our family is suffering. Isn't helping each other what family does? They pleaded desperately. After all the times they treated people as poor, to now claim family, it was laughable. I firmly told them. Neither collaboration nor financial support is possible. Kevin has also cut ties with you, hasn't he? Please leave now. But the parents wouldn't leave. But they tried to cling to me somehow. I firmly reiterated to the parents. Do not appear in front of me ever again. If I see you again, I will call the police. Perhaps because I mentioned the police, the father said, please, anything but the police. We won't come again, and took his wife away. Their clothes were dirty, they were likely not living well. These were the people who had once scorned others as poor. It was nothing but poetic justice. As for Kevin's sister, I heard she became completely reclusive. She's struggling to find a job, and it doesn't seem like she'll be getting married anytime soon. She barely leaves her room, pessimistic about what lies ahead. Her prospects seem bleak. 3 years have passed since then. Now, I live with Jade and Kevin. Ideally, as newlyweds, they should be living on their own. However, Kevin suggested we live together, saying, I think it's safer for Jade to be with her mother in case of emergencies. Kevin often does the housework with Jade on my behalf since I'm busy with work. I'm truly grateful. A significant change has occurred in our lives. One day, Jade approached me with a serious look. Mom. Worried something might have happened to her, I grew anxious. But then, Jade smiled. It looks like I'm going to be a mother. Jade happily stroked her belly. That's wonderful, Jade. Congratulations. Feeling joyful, I hugged Jade. Beside Jade and me, Kevin was smiling happily. I know we will face many challenges ahead. But I'm confident we can overcome them together. I'm also looking forward to meeting my grandchild. Imagining our happy future, a smile naturally spread across my face.